Hello everyone and welcome to this video which is in our Great Engine Middlegames series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we are taking a look at the game between Weiss and Coivisto, played in the TCEC Season 22 League 3, which has just been won by Coivisto. It's a beautiful demonstration of the old adage that when queens and rooks are on the board, it's king safety that's the most important, and that this can compensate even for a significant material disadvantage. But wow, does Coivisto prove that? It's a really amazing middle game. Let's take a look at this one. So, this position, it's a sharp Open Sicilian, and the immediate danger that was in Black's position when White thrust forward its G and F pawns, that's been kind of neutralised, and White's been left with a really nice space advantage on the king side. But yeah, also a lot of open space in front of its own king. Now, one key achievement for Black is this move h5, because one of the big strengths of this thorn pawn on f6, it's the restriction of the Black king to the back rank. Now that Black has played h5, Black has the possibility of playing the king to h7, and the fact that it's that Black's major pieces are not tied to the defence of the back rank gives them an enormous amount of freedom. And that h5 pawn, it can be a target for a sacrifice by White. If it was on h7, it would be a little bit safer from that point of view, of course. But White really needs to organise quite a few pieces attacking this pawn, maybe a rook to the h file, for example, before it becomes dangerous. And if you look at the White position, you've got this bishop on f3 passively defending the pawn on e4, and you've got this knight on a2, which is necessary to hold back the b5 to b4 break. So when you see those passive minor pieces, the somewhat airy White king, and the fact that there aren't that many open files on the board, then you realise actually that White's got himself into a situation where he's just got to wait to see what Black is going to do. And Black's position is much more promising. We've got in terms of breaks, we can consider d5 and b4. And of course we can consider sacrificing pawns as well, because if the position becomes open, look at the White king, this knight on e8 is pretty poor at the moment, but it does have potential. Instead of this knight on a2 holding back b4, you could imagine this knight coming to a square like e5 or c5, just to start with. So there's a lot of possibilities here, and actually this is quite a major point for Black, because there's two main ways of playing, and running Leela and letting Leela run and run, you can see Leela's main move switching between two ideas, and I actually think they're both good, but they're quite different approaches. So one idea, and that's the calm positional idea, is to play the move e5. And what's the idea of e5? Well, we fix this e4 pawn as a weakness, and of course what we do... I think that's a draw between Winter and Komodo 14 CCRL. Just watching the League 2 testing as I'm recording this. The e5 pawn here, it frees the e6 square for the knight. So actually we can go knight c7 to e6, and then we're attacking g5, we're invading on f4. So this could be a really strong square for the knight. Obviously, d5 is a lot more difficult, and the d6 pawn is backwards. But, it could well be that, the strength of this knight compensates for all that. Now, if I put Leela against Stockfish, with both colours, it ends in a draw. They managed to neutralise themselves. But, I ran some games between Stockfish and Koivisto 713, which I think is exactly the same version that was playing in the TCEC. And Coivisto had some problems as White here. Let's have a look at the game, because it was pretty nice. This was Stockfish playing as Black. So h3, bishop a8, rook e1, rook d8, knight c1, knight c7, knight d3. So White takes the opportunity to move the knight from a2 to d3. It stops b4, stops knight f4, so it's probably a slightly better square. On the other hand, it means that the d6 pawn is no longer weak, because there's no immediate pressure against it. So knight e6 played, bishop g2, bishop c6, h4, queen c7, bishop f3, bishop b7, bishop g2. So just get a little bit of shuffling here, and Stockfish is trying to feel its way to a good disposition of its pieces, and then it comes up with something. And I think this is something that you often notice with Leela. This was always a key feature of its play, AlphaZero as well, is the way that these engines improve their position, which is they've got a set of outposts, and they just seem to switch their minor pieces from in between those outposts, and somehow that leads to an improvement of the position. And this is exactly what Stockfish does here. So bishop c8, bishop f1, knight f8. I mean, you played knight e6, right? And now you're putting the knight back to f8. But the idea of this is that you'll bring the bishop to e6, round to c4, and then afterwards you're going to bring the knight to e6. And this is a beautiful setup for black. What's happening? First of all, the bishop is active on c4. It's going to exchange itself for the knight, which gives access to the f4 square for the knight, and also, crucially, allows white to push through with b4. And then this is a very nice setup with the rooks, just along the ranks, defending the pawn on d6, nice and easy. That pressure against the d pawn is not going to be important. And well, if you look at what happened here, rook d1, queen e8, bishop f1 takes, queen c8, bishop e2, b4. This was really, really nice from Stockfish. And well, after a takes b4, c4, b3, rook a1, rook a6, we're completely ready to take the a file, and then knight d4. The knight's blocking any pressure against the d file, so now we're ready to come in with the rooks and increase the pressure. This was too much for Coivisto, and lost very soon after. So a very nice demonstration there of the plans with e5. As I said, Leela was really, switching between, as the nodes went higher. But in the end, Leela went for Coivisto's approach, which is very active indeed, and that's to play d5. So, what's the idea of d5? Well, there's a couple of ideas, and I think you can see it very clearly if you see what happens if white accepts this pawn sacrifice. First of all, we've cleared the fourth rank. So this rook is suddenly very active, coming over to g4. At the very least, is going to tie down one white major piece to the defence of the king and the defence of the g5 pawn. And of course, by getting rid of the pawn on d6, we freed d6 for the knight, so it's ready to come into f5. And what we also do as well, we've actually, as a nice extra bonus, we've opened the e file. So, white's sort of got control of the d file, but black can fight for the e file. And this turned out to be just incredibly powerful and incredibly painful for black. You just can't keep the black pieces away. And here you see something very, very important as well, is that the g5 pawn is incredibly important for white to hold, because if the g5 pawn goes, then the f6 pawn goes. So it's quite natural, of course, that after d5, white plays e5. I think you can understand what the advantages are. You take the d6 square away from the knight. The knight on the 8 is still passive. You are keeping the central files closed. And also, you're providing some extra protection of the f6 pawn as well. So, even if the g5 pawn goes, the e5 pawn is still there. This was not just one move from Coivisto. This is a whole sequence, and b4 was played by Coivisto. It's now time to blast open the centre. And if you put Leela against Stockfish, Leela and Stockfish were both defending in a very tight manner, you could say. Really just keeping this protection of the d4 square, and just trying to use the queen to to stop black from activating anything, right? The queen can't really move anywhere, can't take the pawn because it's defended by the rook. If it goes here, it's exchanging off the queens. D4 allows queen takes b7. You're trying to keep black bottled up, and it's a definite advantage for black. But Leela and Stockfish were managing to draw this somehow. That's quite a good way of defending. what Weiss did was Weiss took on b4, and now you really get black's activity increasing. d4 played, so yeah, I mean, you obviously can't take here because we'll have something like rook takes d4, and if queen takes d4, then bishop takes f3. So d4, queen f2, and now, yeah, I mean, actually, it's slightly different, but the idea is always the same. Leela's move here was to go d3 straight away, and it had yeah, a lot of games here with Stockfish, which ended in draws. But yeah, this was also I think Stockfish's main choice as black, which was you know, also leading to a lot of wins. It's very similar to the game, just a slightly different positioning of the white major pieces, so we're not going to go into those too much. But the idea is very clear: bishop f3, queen f3, and d3. That's the key idea. Now, why are we doing that? Why are we giving up a second pawn, going 2 pawns down? Well, the idea is clear. I mean, you know, the light squared bishop was quite was a little bit passive in the situation. So what we're doing, we've exchanged that one off. But now what we're doing, we are we've opened up the 4th rank, and yeah, we've got access to the g4 square, to the f4 square, to the h4 square, and it just means that white's king is very, very drafty. So queen takes d3 here. Yeah, I ran Leela for 17,000 kilonodes, and the assessment was minus 0.36, you know, which was quite, yeah, you know, a nice advantage for black. Nothing decisive yet. Interestingly enough, Stockfish was very keen on playing rook e4 here. And after queen a8, we go knight c3. You know, we're not trying to make anything of these queenside pawns. We're simply trying to block access to the 4th rank, and this was leading to a lot of draws still. But so I mean, again, you know, it just shows here, you know, from time to time, you know, that material is less important than blocking, you know, the activity of the opponent's pieces. But Weiss played queen d3 in this position, and now we get rook g4 check, rook g2. Rook f4, and very interesting position here, and this is really where the game turned. In this position, Weiss played actually a very strange move. Weiss played b takes a5. Now, I mean, the best move again was to play queen e3, holding this e5 pawn. I mean, it's a very natural move. Well, we've got to decide, you know, exactly what we're going to do there. For example, if you go rook c4, this was Coivisto's choice, and again knight c3, not doing anything special on the queen side there. Give that pawn away, but just hold that center. And you know, this is uncomfortable for white, but white is kind of you know, tight, and was able to hold when Stockfish was playing white at least. But Weiss played the move b takes a5, which is kind of odd in a way, because black plays queen takes c5, and we've just got this double threat of queen e1 and also queen takes a5. And somehow, after rook d1, Weiss was not expecting black to take on a5, which you know, is really weird. It's a strange little glitch there from the Weiss wizard. But yeah, so a very strange move. But after here, you know, the assessment changes completely. I mean, black is still a pawn down, you know, so white still has 2 passed queenside pawns, but the assessment is, you know, is going to -2, -3, -4 incredibly quickly. And we'll just have a look at a couple more moves, and we're going to try and work out why that is. So yeah, I mean, Engine's claiming a massive advantage for black here, and you know, with black, I definitely feel that I've got counter chances. But I don't think I'd dare to go anywhere near, you know, a -4, -5 evaluation. You know, the sort of, you know, relax. It's just winning. But first of all, I mean, let's just understand, you know, what that compensation is for black. First of all, black's king is much safer here. You know, the white pawns are close to it, but they're actually shielding the black king. And of course, you know, the black king has got this very safe square on h7, so never any need to worry about a check on the back rank. White's king is very, very open. I mean, in actual fact, you always need a white major piece like a rook to defend the white king. It's got to be defended against checks from the g-file, and it's also got to defend this g5 pawn. Because if this g5 pawn goes, then the f6 pawn goes, and suddenly black's a pawn up, and still got the attack. So I mean that's very very important, and I mean what you're looking really in this position is that you're saying that the white king is vulnerable to attack by black major pieces, and if you look at the position, then you see that the black major pieces have got a lot of ways of getting into the white position. I mean, we can use the 5th rank now because the e5 pawn's gone. We can use the 4th like that. We can use the 4th rank and come along here, and we've even got access to the 3rd rank. And you'll just notice that white hasn't really got much central control here. I mean, you've got this knight on c3 that's sort of covering e4 a little bit, but apart from that, there's no pawns. There's nothing for white to put obstacles in the way of this. And I mean, as you'll see, Coivisto makes really an awful lot of use of this. I think also, what you can say is that, the black knight is certainly not great on the 8 at the moment. But I mean, we've already seen it coming to e6. We've seen it coming to to f5. I mean, there are some great potential square for the knight, and if it gets to somewhere like f5, where it's aiming then for e3 or for h4, I mean, it's a massive amount of power coming from there. Whereas for white, I don't really see the white knight having that sort of influence on the game. So, I mean, that's another big thing. That potential of the knights is much different, even if the knight at the moment is quite passive. I mean, then if we put that all together, what we're saying is there's a big difference in the safety of the king. There's a white major piece, a rook, that always is going to be tied down to the defense of the white king, and there's the potential activity of the knights. But for all that, my eyes keep on shifting to those queenside pawns and thinking, if I'm not careful, they might start running at some stage. I mean, not now at the moment. I mean, it's pretty hard to advance them, but still, does that mean that that black really needs to get going quickly and really press on the accelerator, because otherwise you could end up in a losing endgame with those 2 pawns running? Well, that's the key point of the evaluation, of course, and that's the key difference. That's the key understanding that the engines are showing that I'm struggling with a little bit, because if you look at the game, how it proceeds, the engines play so unhurriedly as black. It's really as if there's all the time in the world. And if you look at what happens as well, from the black side, the engines are very happy to exchange off a pair of rooks and also a knight as well. Because what are you left with then? It's this idea of exchanging off active pieces, leaving the opponent with passive pieces. I mean, if you have queen and rook versus queen and rook, white needs a rook to defend its king, to defend its pawn. It just means that the black's basically playing with queen and rook against a queen and very passive rook from white. And that's, a massive advantage. But you'll notice very clearly as well that black's really avoiding the exchange of both pair of rooks, or avoiding the exchange of queens. That is not going to happen. But a pair of rooks and knight, that only serves to increase black's dynamic advantage. So this is really, really interesting. I mean, it's a really great, example of this theme, which is well known in human chess, but somehow, this is just demonstrated in a quite amazing setting. And Coivisto keeps on coming with the amazing moves, because after king g1, Coivisto's next move was knight c7, and I saw it and I thought, I don't understand. Okay, it's not easy to get a knight to d6 to f5. I understand. I mean, we've got these rooks on the d file, rook and queen on the d file. Not easy to do, but what are you doing going to c7? Well, the brilliant idea was after queen e3, you're playing this move e5, just another pawn sacrifice. And I mean, you just see all these pawn sacrifices that Coivisto is making, just to free squares for its pieces. But this one's really, really powerful, because of course, you're freeing e6 for the knight, and then it's going to attack g5 and threaten to come into f4, combining with the queen on g2. And Yeah, I mean, if you don't take it, then the knight also gets an outpost on d4, which is also very dangerous. And, the other sort of point to it is that, after queen e5, well, I mean, white had control of the d file, but now you've opened another file. White can't keep control of both the d and the e file. So on top of all the invasion possibilities along ranks that we've seen already, there's also one now along the e file. Yeah, I mean, what am I describing to you? I'm just describing to you this relentless increase in the activity of black's pieces, and most often than not, coming with the sacrifice of a pawn. It's amazing play. So knight e6 played, queen e3, rook c4. Just invading through the ranks here. Rook dd2, and then rook f3, just knocking the white queen, and now rook c5, and we're aiming now for this pawn. And of course, if we get knight g5, knight g5 to h3, I mean, that's going to be really, really horrible. And I mean, by this stage, already for quite a number of moves, there's like multiple ways according to the engines of winning. It's not even close anymore. So rook g3, rook f4, just not exchanging the rooks here, and then coming in with this rook cf5. Yeah, I mean, this is a beautiful concentration of power, really. The rooks attacking all these squares. We've got the queen also adding some power along there, and I mean, really able to switch to all sorts of squares to add power from a distance. And of course, we've got this knight, able to come into d4, but most likely coming into to g5, and then the f6 pawn will go away. Just incredible coordination, harmony in Coivisto's play here. Rook gd3, and then the final piece of the puzzle. Yeah, we can just put the king nice and safe on h7. No worries about back rank checks, and if we do something like a rook d7, at the very least we've always got knight takes g5, which is attacking and also defending the pawn on f7. I mean, it's just beautiful how it all comes together. So, well, Weiss kept on fighting. Rook ff5, attacking the knight. Knight e3, queen check, king in the corner. Queen check, knight g2, self-pinning, rook takes f6. Yeah, no worries at all. Now, the f7 pawn is defended by the rook. The rook's in a great position, obviously, covering lots of squares, and we've got moves like knight f4 coming in. So much power in black's position. Rook 2d5, Weiss trying to swap off some pieces, but at some stage the killer blow has to come. And Coivisto just went for this way: knight g5, rook b7, a little decoy, and now a nice little combination: rook d3, rook h3 check, knight f3, and wherever white goes here, we're going to get a discovered check. Yeah, I guess knight d4 is kind of the best one here. Just picking up the queen, ending up with an extra pawn. Oh yeah, of course, queen f2. There's rook h1 checkmate. I haven't spotted that one. So that's very, very nice indeed. So after knight f3, queen f3 was played, rook f3, but this is just curtains. It's not going to last very long, and indeed, it didn't. But an absolutely stunning game from Coivisto. I mean, it's really, the level of the top engines here. What it's doing here from pretty tough position. Just the enormous, rush of activity that just overwhelms Weiss is quite amazing. And this whole idea, these pawn sacrifices. All these pawn sacrifices just done to clear space for the remaining material, which is queen, two rooks, and a knight as well, and then the continuation of the moves, in particular, this move e5, just to giving away another pawn, just to open more lines for the rooks and bring the knight into a great square. Really nice. And then this final setup, really, with the rooks, on f5, the knight on e6, so much concentration of power in the position. It's, really beautiful and, real power play there from Coivisto. So, so there we are. Probably by the time you watch this video, maybe League 2 will even have started, and we'll be seeing what Coivisto is doing. But based on this play, I mean, I think it's really looking like like a very strong favourite to get into League One and well, who knows, maybe into the Premier Division as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoyed the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, now available in paperback, in Kindle from Amazon, and also in the Forward Chess version. Masses of fantastic engine games, analysis of engine games, and some lovely ideas about training with engines as well. But otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you for the next video.